There we go. We're live and we're recording. Hey, everybody. My name's Curt Maly here, Black Box Social Media. Got my friend Jeff Sauer right here. Now, what's really interesting is we'll kind of get into this in a couple of minutes, but Jeff spent over $20 million in Google ads. So I like to say I spent $6 million in Facebook. 20 million is a lot of money, plus with a lot of major brands as well, too. So we're going to get into an interview in just a minute. I just want to make sure, though, Jeff, can you hear me okay? Let's test your audio out real quick.
I can hear you great. Can you hear me?
Awesome. Yes. Okay. So a couple of things. Let me tell you about how Blab works, right? We'll get right into the interview. So if you're taking a look at your screen right now, you're going to see where there is a position down below where Nick's going to join us, my business partner, in just a couple of minutes. But you're going to be able to call in. And what you're going to be able to do is ask Jeff any questions. I'm going to go through a couple of Q&As first, but go ahead and get queued up, and then I'll bring you on in. Ask Jeff any questions as well. I got a couple of questions I want to get out of the way. Now, if you've never been to Blab before, let me quickly explain it for you. On the left-hand side, right over there, you're going to see the title. Now, if we say something smart, sorry, not we. When Jeff says something really smart, do me a favor and go ahead and tweet it. Tell a little bird, right? Tweet it out. Tell people that you're here. Let them know what's going on. It's on the left-hand side. It's great. Now, we are recording this. Brand new technology, so you never know how the recording is actually going to turn out. So we're going to try our best. Now, if you move on over and you start taking a look, thank you, Drew, for tweeting that out. Appreciate that. If you go on over and you look at the very top, right above us, right up here, you're going to see all these faces of really important people. Well, the way that it works is the 249 that you see at the top right now, that's 249 people have either come in, they've watched, they've left, whatever. But we have 57 live people joining right now. Now, what I love about Blab is if you click on that little eye at the top and it shows you how many people are viewing right now, 57 people, you can scroll on down like Beth's the first one that comes up. Click on Beth. You can see what Beth does for Blab. I'm a mom of a special needs child. God bless your heart, which is awesome. And I work from home in online marketing and nutrition. That is awesome. But you can find some great people on here, right? You can see who's watching, who's looking. It's a great way to connect with people. You can connect with them on Twitter. Follow them here on Blab. So absolutely amazing set of people. Now, the next thing that you're going to see right below is you're going to see my video and, of course, Jeff's video. So what happens is you can go ahead and follow him right at the top. If you just click right at the top of your page, you can go ahead and follow him right away. You can follow me as well, too, by one click of the button. Now, what I absolutely love is these little high five things right here, right? And really what they're referred to is giving props. So if I come over to Jeff and I'm like, oh, my God, that was so smart. I can click on it a bunch of times, right? And that is his social equity. Now, that lets other people know as well, too. Oh, my goodness, there must be something going on because he has all these props and there's all these people on this call, and this must be really, really important. So make sure you give Jeff lots of props, especially when he says something smart, which will be a ton. On the right-hand side, out of my computer, I got so excited. On the right-hand side, right over there, Ask Jeff, what we're going to see is a bunch of questions and comments. Ask your questions, ask your comments in there. It's going to be a fun place to get started. So again, one more time, how many times is your first time ever using Blab? Just curious, type in the right-hand side. Jeff, this is your first time using Blab, right?
Yep, first time. Perfect.
Point the opposite way on Blab. Damn it. I'm looking at my camera here. It must show up the other way. I'll figure it out. Kind of my first time. Yep, first. We have a lot of Blab versions here, which is absolutely awesome. So one last kind of thing before we jump into the interview. You know, one of the things I love about new technology, especially Blab right now, is number one, it's really for early adopters. So people who are used to change, which is great. Typically people a little bit smarter too. So we got a lot of smart people that are on here as well too. And what's great is you can search, like by marketing and business, you can search for categories to find the right Blab for you. And the more people that you get to join, like we have right now, the more people get to hear about the Blab. So it is enough hearing me blab for the last 6 minutes about what is Blab or Google Ad Spend. I'm confused. Is this about Blab or Google Ad Spend? This is about Google Ad Spend. But we have so many first-time users on here, I just wanted to walk through it real quick. Now, one last thing before I get started. Here's the difference between here and Periscope. In my professional opinion, and again, from all the different social media clients we have, Periscope is great because you get to contact people all over the world. They see when you're live. When people start to follow you, your targeting starts to become a lot closer. However, on Blab, what I love about it is the engagement that you get to have right here. Love it. You get to record it. The recording lasts more than 24 hours. And I'm seeing more people who are adapting to new technology get onto Blab faster than they are onto Periscope. So let's rock. Lanny says, let's get on this Google conversation. So Jeff, I appreciate it. Thank you for being here. One small thing about you is you decided to make a lifestyle change. I know just recently, Where are you? I know where you're at today, but will you tell everybody else where are you at today?
Yeah, I'm in Auckland, New Zealand. So I've been traveling full time for the last 2 months and sort of made my way from the west coast of the U.S. and now I'm down in New Zealand. And so it's 6 a.m. here. Had to get up pretty early, 5 a.m. just to get this thing to work and get the technology going. But I'm happy to be online.
Which is great. You know, it's funny because sometimes we've had some conversations and it's like we couldn't hear each other. The reception's bad. I'm like, dude, we got to have you. Like, I'm on top of a mountain halfway across the world. Like, what do you want from me? And I'm like, okay, that's a really good point. Like, you get to enjoy it. So a couple of questions just to kind of rock and roll this thing through. Lifestyle design. I want to talk about that here for just a second. So did you have to grow an agency with hundreds of employees so you can kind of take off on your own? Did you learn a niche and you consult a little bit on the side so you can travel the world? I'm just really curious what the Google skills has allowed you to do for what you're doing now.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I had an agency for about 10 years and that was really, really fun. And we had, we grew from, I was the 5th employee all the way up to 55 employees. So we did all that and it was very fun. But that really does keep you grounded. So I was located in the Twin Cities, Minneapolis and St. Paul, and did all that stuff and worked out really well. The agency is still there and they're still thriving. But I decided to sort of move on and do this whole travel and work when I need to work type thing. And so I have several different things going on. I do client work and some consulting. I do teaching at universities and online, and just have all kinds of different things that I'm dipping my toes in that keep us going and keep us, traveling for another month at a time.
Just fun. I think one of the reasons I bring this up is because you can learn certain trade skills and you don't have to have 500 people working for you to travel the world for a year or 2 years like what you're doing as well too. So it's great. So I am curious, years ago, how did you ever get started in Google? Because let's preface this. Actually, here's a question that you wanted me to ask and want everybody else to ask. How many people here, it's kind of a two-part question, how many people here have used Google before and you're like, dude, it's been years since I used them. Like, I didn't like them. They had horrible customer service. I did use them, but I won't or I haven't in years. How many people I've used them, won't use them, haven't used them in years? Or the second category is you've never run Google search ads. I'm just curious. What is the difference between the two? Tried InstaStream with ad B-roll, not used them. It's been years. A lot of people say that. It's been years. Used it. Haven't run Google ads, not used it. I have an ad team. Great. So how many years ago did you get into it again, Jeff?
Yeah, somewhere between 10 and 15 years, like officially really, really getting into it about 10 years ago. And the story is interesting. I knew that it was the future and I knew that it was important, but I don't think that even then, 10 years ago, and even now, not many people really understood what you could do with the power of it. And so back then I had no experience. And I think that that's a lot of people that take my class and that take my classes have no experience and they're trying to get that. And what I tell them is just ask somebody if you can manage their accounts. And so I went to a local business owner and I said, I'll work for free to manage your Google accounts. I am confident that these things that I've learned, these things that I've been studying will make your business better, will make you more efficient. So give me access to your account. I won't even charge you for the first several months. And actually, I worked for free for probably a year before I was able to make money off of this. But I was able to take their amount of money they're spending and they're paying, somewhere around $500 to get a name, to get a lead in their program. And I was able to bring it down, 400 or 500%, under $100 pretty easily just by doing the things that I had learned reading online. And once you do that a few times, you start to build your confidence. And from there, they started talking to their friends and their peers. And eventually I had an agency doing AdWords consulting.
It's funny how things like just start to happen. It's like, oh, we're for free just a little bit. Let me learn a little bit on your dime. And then all of a sudden you have a business in a very short time. Or very, very interesting. So I'm kind of curious, and I know this is kind of an asinine question, but have you seen very many changes in the last 15 years with Google?
There's a lot of changes as far as like the extensions and the tactical aspects of what you're doing, but the strategies are still the same. I mean, the strategy is, how do I generate cost-effective customers for my business? And that's really never going to change, right? How do you make new customers come out of thin air, or how do you take advantage of this search engine where there's, I think I had told you before, there's over 1 trillion searches that happen a year on Google AdWords or on Google. how do you take a piece of that for people who are looking for information, raising their hand, looking for something that is interesting to them, and how do you become the best answer? And that's how it works with organic search. That's how it works with paid search. It's all about being the best answer to the people who need something, the people who are curious about what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And just to let everybody know, I'm going to bring you on for questions here in just a little bit. There's a couple of questions I want to go through from Jeff. So I'm going to have some people waiting. If you're waiting for a host, I'll tell you when it's time to jump on in, and then I'll approve you to come down and get some questions answered as well, too. So one of the things, Jeff, that you said that I think is really, actually two things that you said that's really important, because I'm watching the comments over on the right-hand side. I got started in Facebook marketing the same way, where we had a client and I'm like, hey, we're doing some work for you. I'll run it for free, which basically just meant I will learn while you spend money on your credit card and I'll work for free. Now, some people are like, and here's what I love is the mindset. People will be like, what the hell would you work for free for? Well, dude, you paid $50,000 for a college education. What about if you got it for free and used someone else's money to go? Like, I don't understand what the difference is, right? And there's no money out of my pocket as well, too. So important.
And it's all about getting that long-term value, right? Like, don't worry about making as much money as you can in the short term, because that's not really what you're in it for. I mean, we're talking about careers that last decades and much longer than that. Do we really worry about what we'd made today, or is it really about setting ourselves up for the long haul? And that's sort of my philosophy with everything that I do, is I give value before I receive value. And that has worked really well for me. And that's allowed me to do a lot of things that I'm talking about doing today.
Say that. This thing should be on mute. Say that one more time about value. That's a really interesting statement you just gave.
Yeah, I'm all about giving value to people before I try to extract value back out of them or through the people that I work with. And that's set me up to the point where I have a lot of people who feel like a lot of people who I can call in favors, and a lot of great relationships with people. And that's worked really well for me. And I was saying that helps me along the way. Now that I'm on the road full time, things come in all the time. All the seeds that I planted years ago are still materializing almost on a daily basis.
And that's what I absolutely love as well, too. Someone else with technical difficulties is trying to text me and talk at the same time. Always interesting. So I love the way that you started using other people's money. I love when you're talking about value, and which is absolutely great, because really you're learning from someone else's dime, because you don't have the ego that you have to get paid right away. So let's talk about the progression over the last 15 years. You said something that was really important. I tell people this all the time with Facebook. You said, look, a lot of these same strategies work the exact same. The layout may be different. The targeting may be different. And you said it really just comes down to what? I want people to write this down, because it's really just a couple of important numbers. And what are some of the most important numbers when you're looking at a Google campaign that really doesn't change over the years?
Yeah, I mean, it's fundamentally, it's always been about keywords. So when somebody searches on a search engine, they're looking for something. They're looking for an answer. So that's what the keyword is. And the Google system, it's an auction-based system that allows you to bid up and bid to pay for somebody's searches on that keyword. And that's how it's been all along, and that's how it's going to be well into the future. That's really how that part of AdWords works. And so the first thing is making sure that you have the right list of keywords. So focusing on the right keywords that make sense to your business, and not bidding on the ones that may sound good to you but are not effective for you. And then the other one is just tight management of your budget. So a lot of people, the people who get burned by AdWords the most often are the ones who decide, I'm going to put $1,000 into AdWords a day, and I'm going to bid on very broad one-word keyword terms. Like I might bid on insurance or car insurance. Well, they find that $1,000 budget ends up getting dried up in 20 clicks, because it's $50 a click. And then they say, AdWords doesn't work for me. Or they do it for a month without getting any product market fit or any results. And they say, AdWords doesn't work. I'm going to stop it. I'm just going to cut the bleeding now and stop doing it. But those are the ones, they're never going to succeed, because that's not really what works here. The opposite is what makes you work in AdWords.
Absolutely. I'm going to kind of ask you a two-part question. What do you tell people? We've only had a couple of people mention this. We don't have to spend a ton of time on it. But what do you tell people who are like, I got banned 3 years ago. 4 years ago, it just didn't work for me. What would you tell them now about if they wanted to re-enter AdWords? Like, did they ban a person's soul for life? Like, how does this whole thing work?
Yeah, I mean, that's good. So the banning usually happens per advertiser, not for the person necessarily. And so it might be that you try to advertise a product that's restricted, or that you're doing something that's against their policies. It really depends. I've had clients threaten to get banned, and I was able to get them out of it by leaning on my contacts at Google and saying, hey, this is a legitimate business doing legitimate things. And so I got them out of that weird limbo land that they were in, and we're able to get that to work. So a Google rep really helps out. For those that don't have Google reps, it's all about understanding the policies that they have. So they're very public and transparent with their policies. You can use these words, you can't use those words. You can do this, you can't do that. The ones who sort of play in the gray area where whether you can do that or not, yeah, there's a chance you could get banned. But ultimately, those are little things that have short-term effects. It's just like buying links in SEO. You do that, and the chances of getting banned at some point or getting in trouble are there, right? They're real. And so usually you can get around that by repenting for what you did wrong or sort of trying to fix the wrongs that might have been done. And that's what I would recommend that an advertiser does, is fix what you did wrong in the past.
So a couple of things with that. Very interesting situation. Let's compare Facebook to Google for just a second on a couple of different fronts. Number one, Facebook's getting better at their communication. But if you want to talk to the same person twice, typically that just doesn't ever happen. And customer service, you guys can figure that one out. So what about now is, because we always say history repeats itself, right? So we watch Google, it's what Facebook's going through right now, and then Google's improved, where hopefully Facebook will. How's the experience of reaching out for help? Is it hard? Is it difficult with Google? Like, what's that experience for a new advertiser?
Yeah, it really depends. So Google's a data-driven company, and so they look at what you spent, and then they will either assign you a real person rep, or you get to go through the normal support queue that goes to anybody. Now, the threshold for getting a real person is not super high. Even on my account, that's not spending a tremendous amount of money, not near the $20 million accounts that I was managing. Those ones will get reps from Google. Now, the reps are sort of a revolving door because, they start out with the small businesses and then they work their way up to the bigger businesses and so on. But it's easy, it's fairly easy to get a rep. And if you know what buttons to push, it's pretty easy to get a response. And that's really what it comes down to, is knowing what buttons to push and knowing who you need to talk to and being resourceful. And so that's something that I talk about pretty extensively in my class, just talking about how you get Google's attention. How do you go through and get what they need?
So here's the other interesting thing. Does it help? I heard something about, we don't have to go to a ton of this. I think we can maybe even set up another time to go over this as well too, is when you get certified for Google AdWords, when you get certified for Google, does that help get better contacts at Google? Like, how does that work?
Yeah. So going through the process of getting certified and even attaching yourself to a certified agency or a partner, they have webinars to keep you, with continuing education that they'll give you. They do have access to some escalated support, and you have the ability to generate new business from that as well, because there's a search mechanism where people who are looking for help can search through that directory. And so there's some advantages to being part of their program. All these things, you get what you put into it, right? So if you decide I'm going to become one of Google's top partners and I'm going to do everything they want me to do, you're going to get better treatment than those who sort of sign up and ignore it. And so there's advantages to everything. Back in I had Google send me a projector and a sound bar to stream livecast one of their events. And so by being part of their partner program, they catered a lunch to us. And they sent us all kinds of really interesting swag. And that was just because we were part of their program and we were participating in all the activities. So there are times where just by being there, by being part of it, you do get some nice advantages. And those are the cool things that, you have to try. You have to sign up. You have to go through the program and everything. But there's a lot of things that they're willing to do to help you as an advertiser. Now, if you start and you do it for a month or you do it for a day and determine that Google doesn't work for advertising, you're never going to get that far, right? It does take time and practice to get to that point.
Yeah. So here's what's interesting. So I talked to Facebook. I'm at a live Facebook event, right? And I'm sitting down and I'm like, look, I'm talking to some guys from their charge of global compliance. I think that was the two guys, their names. And I go, look, do you have any kind of certification? I'll pay anything to get certified. Like, Facebook doesn't have to recommend my company. I just want to make sure I'm doing the right things. And they're like, we don't have anything like that yet. I'm thinking, well, Google does. And I go, and I learned this from a friend of mine who has the world's largest health and wellness or fitness channel on YouTube, and they're one of their biggest advertisers. And I go, dude, Google does amazing things for you. What do you do? And you said the exact same thing. He goes, honestly, anytime that they ask for a volunteer, they want me to sign up for a workshop, anytime that they have a case study that I can do, I always participate. Always. And it sounds like that's what you're doing, and then they're sending you additional stuff. Unfortunately, they just don't really do that with Facebook. And it sounds like from what you're saying, even before we get into some of the strategies, because people are asking about bricks and mortar and stuff like that, it sounds like that the more that you participate, the more that you get certified, the more that you engage, the more they engage with you, and the more assistance you get. Is that right? Yeah,
absolutely. And it's and the other thing is being part of the official program versus being part of unofficial programs. I think you should be doing both as much as you can. So I learned a lot of my AdWords. I actually learned very little techniques from them directly, and I learned a lot from talking to other practitioners and to talking to people to see what was working for them. The hallway conversations at a conference, the pitches that you do with different businesses, just really learning the strategies from those who are in the weeds, taking these things on and doing that type of strategy. And that's really where a lot of the learning happens. And so certification is a great way to say, I've arrived. I have this piece of paper from Google that says that I'm good enough to manage your campaigns, and it works really well. And then after that, it's talking to others, talking to people who are your peers and understanding what's working for them. Because that's, there's the difference between theory and practice. And I think that both of those are really important.
Yeah, you bring up a really good point. When I'm talking about kind of the difference between Facebook and Google, one of the interesting things is we spent millions of dollars on Facebook, and it was really hard to talk to anybody over there on a consistent basis. We spent our first $300 on Google, and then someone called us from Google and said, hey, I'd like to help. And I was blown away because there's all these misperceptions of Google's so big, they're not going to help you, they won't do. It's interesting, the support options. So here's a couple of things. Number one, we always talk about Facebook because it's a really easy, quick start. You hit a couple of buttons, you get up and running. But most people don't know how to quantify their numbers right. Did it work? Did it not? And just like you said, they only try for a certain amount of time. Let's go and kind of compare it to Google. So someone asked in here, I really want to kind of focus on new people at this point, or people who haven't been on and jumping back in a couple of years ago. Someone asked, can this work for brick and mortar? Absolutely. So what are some things that someone would take a look at when they're first starting on Google? So someone in here said, hey, a brick and mortar wants to start on Google. They don't know how to get started. They don't even know if they should hire an agency yet. I always recommend they should kind of do some of themselves so they know how to manage it. Like, Jeff, how would someone get started on Google? Is it easy? Does it take months? Like, how quickly can someone get traffic running?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that it's really easy to get started on Google. I always say within 5 minutes and a credit card, you can be online on any keyword on google.com. So it doesn't take very long at all. It takes 5 minutes to get set up. But that easiness is part of the problem because it's so easy that it's really, it gives you this false sense of comfort that just by being easy and getting out there that you're going to get magic results. And so what I would recommend is actually, even though you can do it in 5 minutes, before you even do that, you need to do some planning. And that planning is really as simple as just going and saying, how much money can I afford to spend per action? And then actually before that even is, what are the actions you want somebody to take? What makes you successful? What does it look like? What does it feel like to say that I was successful with AdWords? Is it that you got leads coming in? Is it a certain quantity of leads? Is it a quality of leads? Is it profit margins that you're looking for? Going through all those different scenarios and understanding what exactly is going to make me be successful, then you need to put some tracking in place. So you want to make sure that you know what happens and you can define your success. That's using conversion pixels. And then you can start your campaigns. But even then, you might want to start small and say, I'm going to spend $100 just to see what happens. I can afford to lose $100, and then maybe by $200, I'm actually getting some results, or maybe by $300. And so that the key here is to know, just to be honest with your business as to what you want and how much you're willing to pay for it. Those two things are really important. And then Google you can train Google your parameters after that.
See, so I think that's the interesting thing. You can train Google on your parameters. So a couple of different things from what you just said is obviously getting started. A lot of people are just nervous and they just don't get started. You said they can be up in 5 minutes, obviously following through the right processes. It's interesting because I was just talking to somebody right before this where they said, Curt, I'm just afraid to spend $100. and waste money on some of the. And I go, okay, let's change your language for a second. You're not wasting any money. You're buying data, or you're figuring out what you should not do next time. One or the two, right? Yep. And ideally, what we're looking for is we're looking to buy data to figure out what happens with that data, to figure out can we get more accurate data, to figure out who our accurate customer is. And all of a sudden, a couple of months later, is you're really just looking at your numbers and really know how to crank this thing, right? You can start moving it up. So I know this works for small brick and mortar businesses, right? Depending on what your lead cost is. Like for a lawyer, you could spend $100 for a lead, but their client could be $5,000 versus a supermarket for a lead that's a lot cheaper. So let's go over this here just real quick. I'm really curious, and then I want to take some Q&A questions and have some people lined up. I saw some other questions in here. By the way, one quick question here says, hey, what's a conversion pixel? It's just a little piece of code that you push on your site that, Michelle already put it in, which is great. Just a small little piece of code that just tracks when people come to your website. They track goals, or they can even help you track for retargeting as well too. Okay, so we know it works for small businesses. Let's talk about this. It's a little weird to scale traffic on Facebook because sometimes they look at it as fraud. Sometimes it's kind of weird because, I don't know, you try to go from spending $100 a day to $200 a day and the algorithm gets all messed up. How easy or hard is it to scale traffic on Google?
Yeah, so scaling traffic on Google works pretty well. And sorry, there's something going off in my background that's distracting. So apparently we're getting a wake-up call from the hotel. They're so kind to us. I realize that 6:30 in the morning is the normal time to wake up. So So can you repeat the question? I got a little distracted there.
The question comes to scale. So when people are looking to scale their ads for Facebook, sometimes they'll scale really quick. The algorithm goes off some weird way. Sometimes it's kind of hard to tell. Is it easier to scale on Google? Like, is it easy to scale traffic once you know your numbers?
Yeah, it's much easier it's very easy to scale on Google once you understand your numbers and once you can get your cost per lead. The first thing is that the volume of people who are searching is a growing thing, and it's pretty consistent over time. And so if somebody's looking, I'll just use the insurance example again. People are looking for car insurance all year round, and it doesn't really vary that much. And so if you look at a curve on Google Trends, it's something like that for the year. And maybe there's like some spikes around the holidays or the new year when people are switching policies, and around school time or whenever somebody's getting to be a new driver, those types of things. Those are the spikes that you need to talk about, but it's pretty consistent. So if you're looking at 1 million people who are searching over the course of a month or whatever, that's going to be consistent throughout the entire year. So bringing it up to scale is pretty straightforward when it comes to that. Now, sometimes in order to reach all the people possible, you do need to spend a little bit more money and you need to bid higher to get more reach. But even then, it depends on if it's profitable or not, right? So getting more reach ultimately just comes down to, do you want to get more profitable people coming in? So if you can figure out that something's profitable at $10 or $100 a month, then that should be profitable at $1,000 a month. It might be a little bit less profitable at $10,000 a month. But that's the type of scale that does happen there, because when you think about it, the number of people who are searching is not only, it's pretty consistent over time, but it's also a growing number. Google does see growth in search every single year, even though a lot of that shift has happened from the percentage of people that are on desktops versus mobile have changed a little bit in recent times.
Yeah.
That's just really the percentage. The raw number of people who are on a desktop searching has still grown every single year since Google's happened. And so there's still a lot of people searching on desktops, and it's growing, but then the mobile growth is extremely explosive. That's really where it's coming into. And so tying back to when you're talking about brick and mortars and any other businesses, it's all about understanding the context of your customer. What type of customer do you have, and what would they be doing? Would it make sense for them to be pulling something up on a mobile phone to try to find you, or does it make sense that they'd be searching on a desktop? So I think that a lot of what we do here, a lot of the reason why people don't succeed is because they think that one size is going to fit everybody. But ultimately, it's understanding context and understanding our customers and having a good idea as to what that is, and then using Google as your intermediary to find them, to find more of these people that you understand. Now, if you don't find product market fit in the first place, Google's not gonna make it work for you. It's not gonna just magically decide how to run your business. You need to understand how to generate people who are interested in your business. You need to do the marketing, and then Google is just a place to find a lot of people that fit that profile.
Now, what's interesting, I know, is through analytics, which I don't want to get too far off on this. I know in analytics, when you start really taking a look at stuff, knowing where to look is really important. But pretty soon they start telling you exactly who your customer is, where they're at, what their age range is, what they're looking for. It's pretty amazing. Now, a couple of things that I want to ask a favor for, and then I want to bring on questions because we're at the half hour point. I want to really bring on some questions so you guys can see the open seat here in just a second. But Jeff, I want to ask you a small favor. I think my business partner Nick is on as well too. So we had mentioned it a little bit. We kind of talked about it. You have a whole bunch of tools that you use and step-by-step processes that I absolutely love. Would you mind, and I can have Nick set it up if you're good, would you be willing to do a webinar with us on Thursday and just do an hour training? Like, would you guys appreciate that on the right-hand side? Jeff, I'd like to ask you the question and then have everybody say, yes, please, let's do a training. Would you guys like access to some of, I'm outside your front door. That is creepy. Would you guys, there we go. So that was pretty good. So yes, please, absolutely, yes. That's resounding. That is awesome. Okay, so Nick, as you are listening here online, if you could do me a favor, set this up here real quick. Jeff, I'm just going to call you on the spot. Pick out a time for me. What's a time that works for you?
Well, it's pretty early here, so maybe 7 or 8 on Thursday.
At 8 your time, which would be 3 our time, 3 p.m. Central.
Yeah.
Aha, perfect. Okay, so Nick's going to get the link here real quick. Actually, yeah, let's do this. So we were talking about doing it. Should we do it? Can we do it? Yeah, I mean, we got enough response for. Let's go ahead and do it 3 p.m. Central Standard Time. So Nick, when you have that link, do me a favor, put that in here as well too. I know you can put up a really quick page. By the way, if you guys don't know how to create quick landing pages, there's a great way to do it. And I'm going to be a little selfish. So I'm going to take this interview here, then people's questions here in just a moment. I'm going to take this interview here, and I'm going to put it in the Genius section of our social media ad Genius. So I really appreciate that. Thank you. The second thing is I would, love to do a webinar training. So if you want more information on the webinar training, we'll get actually here, Nick just sent this over. I love how quick this dude works. So if you guys want to, you can register for a training right here that I just put this on. Now, what we're going to do is, by the way, real quick, we'll start taking questions. On the left-hand side, one of those others, right? If you like the information that Jeff's been giving you as well, too, do me a favor, click on Tell a Little Birdie, let more people that are here. Man, we've already had 360 people have come by, 82 people still watching us. That is awesome. I am super excited to really be hosting a webinar with you as well, too, where I know you got – because the thing is like there's so many questions I want to ask you, but I know that you have tools for a lot of the questions that I'm asking you. I also know that you have processes where you're like, dude, it's a process. The screen's could change a little bit, but they're universal processes. So if you guys want to ask Jeff a question, I have one more question for him, but if you want to ask him a question, click on the open seat. I'll allow one person over all the time. You get one question, so make it a really good question. Obviously, any crazies get ejected, but we don't attract crazies because we only attract really smart people. So, Jeff, I'm kind of curious. I know that you speak on a lot of stages. You do keynote speeches on this. You do teachings at colleges about this. So to put this together for a training for people to check out on Friday, and again, I'll post the link in here as well too. But training for people to check out the training on Thursday, us, Friday, you. Yeah. What would be a couple of key points to have people get started? Because, a lot of people just are afraid to get started because they're afraid of what they don't know. Any advice of people just getting started in Google?
Yeah, I think that start with a list of keywords that are that you think are important for you, or even just doing a search and seeing who's showing up for keywords that you think are relevant to your business. So understanding what people are looking for and what might trigger somebody to have bought your product in the past, and starting with a small list of keywords that you think are important to you. And I would start with anything that's 3 words or more, just a little bit longer keywords, because those are often the most effective because they're very driven. And then starting, just to, if you don't have an AdWords account yet, signing up for an account and just looking at those keywords and seeing what they estimate would be the number of people that would search for it, and just how much they think it would cost per click. So just keep doing some research there, or just starting with the one keyword that you think is really important to you and creating an ad and just putting it out there. That's one good way to get started, just to get some data, but not to overspend. too much. The other thing is just to, do some research. So if you have an email list of people who are important to your former customers, and you have a good relationship with them, maybe send them a survey and ask them what they looked for, what made them purchase from you, what were they interested in and what you were doing. So developing that profile of people who are successful. What keywords would you search for to find this product? And then you use something in their voice as opposed to our own voices. We can use their ideas to really come up with better ideas for who we should target. And so a lot of understanding of who we're trying to reach and who our customers are is really the most important legwork. And that's not just an AdWords thing. That's everybody, right? That's all of our businesses. We should really have a lot of understanding as to what we're doing. That's how we get the best results, is to understand our customer and to have a plan for how we're going to not only reach them, the ones who are successful, but how are we going to reach the ones who don't even know they need us yet?
Yeah. Yeah. What's interesting is Lee just asked a question, which is great. Would Google be a good or maybe even better use than Facebook for commerce? I think it kind of depends on what commerce. I see Facebook that you can get up and running pretty quickly, but if you know what you're doing on Google and it doesn't really take a whole heck of a lot of effort, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, Jeff, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I like to start on Facebook real quick to kind of get an idea what my leads are and just run some real quick test traffic. E-com, okay. E-commerce, absolutely, yes. I have some friends that are running a lot of traffic in e-commerce business and doing really well. I like to test a little bit in Facebook, but when I want to scale long-term for long-term, scalable, predictable income, it's Google.
Yeah.
It's always Google.
Yeah. For e-commerce, you have to be on Google. You have to use Google Shopping. You have to use the product feeds, and you really need to be out there, because that is how a lot of us do our searches now. There's some areas where people might just go right to Amazon, or they might go right to the retailer. But for the most part, a lot of consumers that want to buy something start out with a search. And so being on AdWords is how you get noticed in that search for an e-commerce product. And I found it to be very profitable. I've run many campaigns, run many shopping feeds that feed into Google AdWords, and you can make anywhere from 1,000% or higher return on investment from doing that. And then in some areas you might make a little bit less, but it's all about really just being there. And so it's not a question of whether or not you should do it. It's a question of who are you going to miss out on if you don't do it, because that's really what's happening here. Our behavior, and think about your own behavior using a search engine. Your behavior is very much geared towards searching to find something, and that's what consumers are doing. They've been trained to do it, and so and it's not. The thing I'd add here is that it's not a question of whether you should do this or that. It's not an or question. I think it's an and question. There's different parts of the buying cycle that you should be paying attention to for people, and you can do Facebook and AdWords, because the whole point here is that if we know that if we put $1 into AdWords, we make $10 back, we should be putting as many dollars into AdWords as we can, right? And if you can train Facebook to know that if you put $1 into Facebook and you get $10 back, you should be putting as much money into Facebook as you can too. That's what the whole thing is about, right? That's what business is. It's finding a way to make money off of each person that comes in. And so that's not an exclusive thing to just AdWords. It's an exclusive thing to running a good business. And so those are the principles that I think we should all pay attention to and that are really important here.
I appreciate that. So I do want to ask you one other question, see if you guys have any other questions. I mean, there's obviously lots of tools that Jeff's talked about and some of the process that he has. We're going to absolutely share that with you as well. Can you retarget from Google to Facebook, from Facebook to Google? Yes, what you got set up right. Unequivocally, yes. If you are running traffic on Facebook, you definitely should be retargeting. Unequivocally, yes. Man, I'll tell you, myself, clients, a lot of other people I know, over 60% of the revenue can come from retargeting when it's set up right. So absolutely. So I do want to see, is there anybody else that wants to come on the open seat, ask questions? We're going to have some Q&A on Thursday. But really, if we kind of go with the structure I know, Jeff, that you've done before, is we're really going to go through a really good training on Thursday, give you some more insight specifically how to do this, give you ways to access some of his tools and step-by-step guidance as well. But is there anybody that work on just